Good morning internet, and welcome to yet another one of my videos. And today's one is an interesting one because we are affected by what the weather is doing to us. The entire weekend it has pretty much poured and it has been pretty miserable, but this brings to mind the topic of this video, which is a follow-up on a previous video, not the latest one, but a previous video that I did on mid-sized motorcycles. If you go back 2 videos on the history of on the list of the videos that I've uploaded recently, you'll note that the Hornet was one of the mid-sized motorcycles that I mentioned as a result of the realities that we are living with, not just concerning prices, but the fact that motorcycle engines have evolved since the 70s and perhaps 80s even. I'm specifically speaking about the parallel twin, which Yamaha introduced so popularly. So did the NC, but the NC 700 came out with a little less power than we had wanted, revving to a merely 5.5 to 6,000 RPM, not making use of extreme revs. But Honda has now taken this parallel twin to the next level. It's an upright positioned motor, does not sit at an angle, I think, of 70, 60, 70, I stand to be corrected, degrees facing forward, causing a low center of gravity, but it has certainly gone up in power, as I mentioned, to 90 horsepower for a parallel twin, revving up to about 9 to 10,000 revs, which is almost the revs of a normal inline 4-cylinder, even low compression ratio motors. But this to say that the weather, as you can see, pretty miserable, wet everywhere, has brought to memory a reality that we have to consider. And I'm just going to take a walk to the front to remind you why it is that this topic today is so important, particularly in countries like ours, South Africa. Now, with the infrastructure taking a bit of a turn, I've been in this house for 17 years, and this road here used to be a particularly good road. It was very smooth. I'm not going to give you much details, but you can see it's gone as far as being repaired by the locals with cement, which apparently, but unfortunately this is what has happened. And if you look further on, you'll notice get even worse, and the rains certainly don't help much with this whole story. But this to say that this at least gives me a topic of discussion, considering the 750cc motor that NC's brought about, the parallel twin, which has enabled them to compete now on the market of the adventure bikes, which is something that has been on the cards for quite a while, since the Tenere 700 was launched. Now, most of you are already familiar with the new Transalp and the Suzuki V-Strom, amongst others, but I am going to give you a couple of stats and specifics on the different motorcycles. But I recall as a youth being approached, or one of the very first motorcycles I rode, the DT50 2-stroke, also an adventure bike in my time when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, even up to the age of 17, 18. I'm 54 years old, by the way. And this was a fantastic motorcycle with an extremely high stance. The shocks were pretty high. It had a lot of ground clearance. For a little 50cc, this motorcycle performed beautifully around corners. It had good stopping power, and for a little 50cc, you could quite happily reach 80-90 kilometers per hour with a pillion. Anyway, and then the 125 DT came about, and so on. And I believe the I'm not saying Honda launched the adventure bikes, as you will see. I will post many videos on many pictures of motorcycles that have claimed the status of adventure motorcycles, but each one to his own. But the Transalp specifically is the one that I'm mentioning here, and the reason for that is because most of the motorcycles that I've put up on my wall as a youth would have been Honda. I totally believe that the new Suzuki, which has been very mildly exposed concerning marketing, the Suzuki brand hasn't been exploiting the brand, but I believe, and I've looked up, and if I was you, I'd go look up the different stats on both motorcycles, and you'll see that the V-Strom is a little bit more professional concerning, or more geared towards professional riding off-road, or just really throwing it about a little bit more than you would. It has slightly more range, and I'm going to give you the specifics of at least the Honda, so that you are well informed and have a little bit more understanding on the bike that I feel for me would suit the purpose. And I think at this stage of all the new motorcycles that have been launched, the Transalp is probably the only motorcycle I would ever consider owning before a VFR. But I'll have to think hard about that one, because as you know, the VFR is my favorite motorcycle. But the Transalp has come to sort of make the adventure bike a reality for me, because the 1250s with active suspension are the only motorcycles I know that would suit my height. I'm pretty short, unfortunately, and adventure bikes are usually pretty high. I own the NC, which is not a true adventure bike, but it's a good all-round, and it gave me a good impression of how it would feel to own an adventure bike. But this to say that with the kind of circumstances and infrastructure that we're facing with, owning an adventure bike would probably make more sense. And the 750 with 90 horsepower would not only allow you to climb off the highways and go into less accessible roads, but also provide you with a comfortable journey on a highway if need be. I have no idea what the top speed of those motorcycles actually are, including the V-Strom amongst others, but I'm sure they would suffice on the highway. 90 horsepower pretty much tells the full story. So I'm going to cut it here, and I'm going to cue the intro and bring you the rest of the information and the list of specs that you probably need to be aware of. And I have a new phone, so I trust you probably see a lot of my defects on my facial condition and hair amongst others. I've had to upgrade my phone, so I trust this will bring better footage. The problem is I'm still not sure if this is going to be functional on my motorcycle on the actual holder, because I don't even see a hole on my S53 that would accept the microphone. So I'll see you on the other side, and cue the intro and enjoy the rest of the video. Right, and welcome back after the intro. You can all see where I actually went. Thank you, bye-bye. Where I actually went, just like we do with our motorcycles and our vehicles. The body also needs to be arranged, serviced, and cleansed and looked after. But this to say, getting back to the video and to the content that I promised I would bring. Goodness, still raining, so I'm going to make it very quick so that I can continue doing this indoors rather, because this is a brand new phone, man. I don't want to already start exposing this A53 to water and I'm not even on a bike, so don't expect to see me riding my motorcycle today. It's tucked away, covered with its cover, waiting for better days. In the meantime, let's continue with what I said I would bring you, the stats on the new Transalp 2023 750. Right, and there we go, finally at home after a intense workout, something I've kind of stopped being accustomed to as a result of a couple of changes that have taken place in my life. Logistical and geographical issues that I've had to resolve and take care of before getting back to some kind of routine. But anyway, back to the promised information I said I'd give concerning the Honda Transalp 750, which I have to admit was not one of the bikes that I had up on my wall when I was a youngster, but I do have a history of riding adventure bikes. I tell you why, because I'm mostly from Africa, but even in Europe, where the roads are a little bit tighter, narrower, and full of corners and uphills, downhills, and having to negotiate all sorts of obstacles, amongst others, such as intense traffic, motorcycles in Europe take a whole new meaning, and that includes what do you call them? Scooters. Scooters are also motorcycles, by the way. And I have to admit that in Europe, anything above a 300 becomes a big motorcycle for two reasons. One, because of the necessity of having a bigger engine in Europe is not as great as in Africa or the States, for that matter, or even Brazil or Germany with the Autobahn, of course. But at the same time, yes, I'm not saying Portugal doesn't have highways. They do have, but motorcycles are not commonly used as transport vehicles. So if anything, commuting becomes the essence of motorcycle in countries like that. But now, the reason I showed you the holes earlier on in the intro was a reality that we've had to get used to here in South Africa. And as such, I've had the NC 700. Well, I'll jot down a couple of pictures of my NC that I had. A DCT version, which I absolutely loved. Lacked some of the racing features I kind of like, despite my age, which include taking some heavy corners, leaning down a lot. The suspension wasn't set up for me to do that kind of riding with that bike, and it lacked a little bit of the top end that I needed to follow some of my mates, because most of the guys I ride with either ride liter bikes, 800s or 1250s for that matter. But the Transalp 750, the mid-sized adventure segment, was introduced in 1986. You will find that Honda has already in existence a CBX 500, and then it's a step goes a step higher to the CRF 1100 Africa Twin, with a huge power increase and size for that matter. Now, adventure motorcycles are all mostly very tall, and this is one of the reasons why I keep coming back to sports tourers, because they are lower. I'm 1.68 meters. I can't quite figure out. I haven't got the calculation for the conversion to feet, but trust me, that's not a lot. So I tippy-toed on the NC, and the chances are I would tippy-toe on the Africa Twin. And I wouldn't be surprised if the CBX 500, if I had to tippy-toe on that too. But yeah, listen, the parallel twin that Honda has launched is a high-performance twin, 755 cubic centimeters parallel twin, which I believe is derived from the Africa Twin, and it's now sharing with the Honda, which produces, like I said, 90 horsepower, 75 newton meters of torque with a 270-degree crank. It has throttle by wire, 5 riding modes. Let me read the list in case I don't make a mistake. 5-inch TFT color display with a Honda smartphone connectivity for Android and iOS devices. Now, I suppose I've given a mate a call while he's riding his CBR, and he had that system incorporated to his bike. I think that's a good thing for you to be able to answer your phone while riding, which defeats the object, I might say. But since this bike is also intended for commuting, not just adventure, I think that's a good thing to have. Auto cancelling indicators and emergency stop signals. Self-cancelling indicators, I beg your pardon, with emergency stop signals, which is fantastic. My vehicle, the Chinese Haval that you saw there, also has that. I believe it has ABS, of course, and a quick shifter as an option. I think those are actually options. So the panniers and all the luggage are options as well. It comes in 3 colors: rose white, in a tricolor, paying homage to the original Transalp, as you all know, and the matte iridium gray. I don't have all the colors to show you. Metallic and black ballistic, black metallic. Assisted slipper clutch Its range is about 390 kilometers on a 16.9 liter tank. It has rear ABS. You can deactivate the rear ABS, which is fantastic for off-roading, and the torque control can be switched off as well. So finally, 208 kilograms dry. I think that's pretty light for a 750. That's lighter than my motorcycle, my CBF 600. So upside down forks with springs, preload adjustment, and a 21-inch front wheel with an 18-inch back wheel. Now, I've seen a video on YouTube, and I'm sure there were 101 videos on the Transalp by now, but we shouldn't neglect the new Suzuki. I'm going to put a couple of pictures of that bike here as well. Now, in some instances, the Honda does outperform the Suzuki, particularly in power and weight. But the Suzuki does have some frame structure building, which excludes welding in case you fall and have to replace a part of the rear of the motorcycle for some reason. There are a number of features that the Suzuki V-Strom, the new V-Strom parallel twin, which is slightly higher in cubic centimeters and has slightly less horsepower, but on the other hand, it has a little bit more torque. So what am I saying, guys? The Japs and everybody else, the companies are always out there competing with each other, and in my personal opinion, I think the Transalp would come in as a perfect mid-sized, because I've sat on the Africa Twin, and like I say, a little too high for me. Not the kind of bike I feel comfortable in managing on a day-to-day basis. I enjoyed the power. The 1100 Twin was fantastic, but the 750 has come to kind of fill the gap that I was looking for a guy my size, and I think it has the comfort. The seat will speak for itself. It's slightly lower than the Suzuki, and I have no doubt it's a bike that can quite easily run into the 180, 190 kilometer per hour mark, which is higher than the NC. Now, those are all very good reasons to go out and get one of those as opposed to the VFR, but you cannot make any comparisons. The VFR will always be my motorcycle. If I could own two, I think at this stage I would have the Transalp and the VFR. I still like my CBF, the 600. I love the Screamer. It's hardly a Screamer because it has a low compression motor compared to the CBR 600. But once you take that exhaust off, it's certainly a Screamer. It revs high enough and it's fast enough. So yeah, I would miss that bike if I had to swap it for something else. But that's to say, guys, Honda, we welcome, and Suzuki. Along with the Tenere, I will have by now introduced the Tenere 700, which is the ultimate competitor because they were introduced before any of these bikes were introduced. So with EICMA 2023 in Italy showing off all the new models, I can't wait to actually come across a Transalp, in fact the V-Strom as well, and there is an alternate for the V-Strom as well using the same twin motor, the GSX 8, which I will show you the picture of that bike too. I think it's fantastic. I think it's actually nicer than the Hornet, I may add. So yeah, there you go. A couple of details on the Hornet, on the Transalp, which by now I know the internet is flooded with information. But I thought I'd bring you that kind of video content at this stage because the weather, as you saw, is absolutely disappointing. I'm not a commuter anymore. I'm what they call a weekend warrior. It doesn't make me the best motorcyclist in the world, because the guys that commute are the guys that ultimately ride properly, because they ride in conditions such as the ones we've experienced today, and they have to deal with the dangers and the obstacles that I only have to deal with on a weekend basis. So the commuter guys are definitely the guys with the better skills, and I just want to say a big thank you to all my newcomers and to the new subscribers. I never thought this channel would grow to where it is. Who knows? One of these days I might get to the 1,000 subscriber mark. That's how you start, early beginnings. I just hope you enjoyed the footage. I will certainly bring more motorcycling or whatever it is that can bring you in the future. I hope you have a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, evening. Most of you guys come on over to my channel at about 6 p.m. South African time. So I think that's Zulu time. I think. So whatever time you guys are, some of you are from the UK, States, Portugal. So you will be at different times, but it's mostly towards the end of the afternoon that you come over. So have a good afternoon, and we'll see you on the next one. God bless, and see you again.